What is up, guys? It's F from TechSource, and welcome to one of my two budget builds that I'm going to be doing for December. One for Intel and one for AMD, and both of these are going to be sub $700 gaming PCs that will get you over 60 FPS in maxed out settings in 1080p. This particular build will cost you around $650 at the time of making this video, and it features the Ryzen 3 1200 quad-core CPU, which I was able to overclock using the stock heatsink, and by using the MSI B350M Gaming Pro motherboard. I spent $10 more and picked up the MSI board over the ASRock because of stability, and I wanted something more reliable when it comes to overclocking. For RAM, I picked up 8GB from Patriot, which are rated at 2400 MHz. Now this is the sweet spot for Ryzen builds. Paying for faster RAM won't get you much more performance based on the benchmarks I've seen. And for storage, I went with a simple 1TB hard drive from WD. However, you can always easily substitute this for an SSD or add extra storage as you please. The point of this build is to get the most performance possible by spending the least amount of money. Speaking of performance, I opted for the GTX 1060 6GB variant from Zotac because currently this is the best performing mid-range card for the value. That's right, guys, it actually costs less than the RX 580 8GB version that usually goes for around $280, which is $20 more. If you look at benchmarks between these two cards, they are pretty much even in terms of performance, and in some cases the RX 580 does have a slight lead over the 1060. But the difference is minuscule, and honestly I'd rather save $20 and get access to GeForce Experience. You get to use Shadowplay to record games smoothly, and of course you get G-Sync. Powering the build is the 500 watt power supply from EVGA, and the case I went with is the Rosewell FBM X1. And this is actually a pretty good case for only $27. It has 4 USB ports in the front, 2 of which are USB 3. You also get a clear side panel and 2 pre-installed fans. It even comes prepared with standoffs already installed. The cable management wasn't that bad either. I was able to hide some of the wires behind the PC and keep the rest of them hidden behind the hard drive rack. I'm still surprised that this case is going for this cheap. As I said before, you can easily hit 60 FPS in high or max settings on AAA titles. GTA 5 on very high settings you get around 100 FPS, Doom OpenGL over 100 FPS, and Destiny 2 maxed out was actually running in the high 80s, which was very impressive. I jumped into a few events, I joined some PvP matches and drove around my air bike, and not once did the frames dip anywhere near 60. I was getting steady 80 to 90 FPS, and sometimes it would peak over 100 in areas that don't have any action going on. What was more impressive though was actually getting over 60 FPS in PUBG on high settings. This game is horribly optimized, and the fact that it was running very smooth in the mid 60s was very nice to see. Inside buildings, the frames would jump in the high 80s and low 90s, just overall very smooth gameplay. At this point, I do want to mention that both the GPU and CPU were overclocked. Unfortunately, I didn't get lucky in the silicon lottery, and I was only able to push my Ryzen 3 chip to 3.8 GHz at 1.326 volts, which is actually the minimum it can go. I have seen other people using the same cooler and the same exact motherboard combo that pushed their R3 1200 to 4.0 GHz, so it's definitely possible. You just have to be a little lucky. The GPU overclock, however, was a lot smoother. I was able to throw on another 100 MHz to the core clock and 350 MHz to the memory. The GPU boost clock peaked at 1930, but once the temps kicked in, the 1060 was keeping steady at 1873 MHz for the boost clock, and a total effective memory clock at 8706 MHz. Do keep in mind that the Zotac GTX 1060 came out of the box with a boost clock of 1708. So that's a healthy gain of 165 MHz on the overall boost clock. Temperatures were a bit high as expected. After all, I did push the parts to its absolute maximum to get the most performance out of it. Both the CPU and the GPU were running stable at these overclock settings, with the Ryzen 3 1200 peaking at 74 degrees during full load and the GPU peaking at 88 degrees. The fan noise wasn't too bad. With the side panel on during full load, the fan noise was around 50 decibels. For 5-strike benchmarks, I got a score of 10,475. And when it comes to productivity, it does a decent job. I mean, it's not the worst. I definitely don't recommend doing any CPU intensive tasks like editing or graphic design, but just for reference, I rendered out a 3-minute 5K video file in a little under 15 minutes. This is a 5K resolution video file. The reason why I'm throwing all these numbers at you is because I'm going to be comparing all the benchmark numbers in this video to the Intel build, which is coming up shortly. So make sure you guys stick around because we're going to find out which one of these two builds is going to give you the best performance and also the best bang for your buck. Overall, this is an awesome gaming PC that will get you over 60 FPS maxed out and 1080p across almost every game, and it's only going to cost you around $650, which is very tempting. If you guys want to build this PC for a lot less, then be on the lookout for discounts and deals coming up for Christmas. In fact, the best place to check for PC deals is on my website, dealsource.tech, because we update the website 4 to 5 times throughout the day with fresh deals that we find on Amazon, Newegg, and eBay. So if you guys want to save money on your next build, or maybe you want to pick up a few parts and upgrade your current PC, then make sure you guys are bookmarking the website and checking back constantly, especially during the holidays. The website is going to be packed with some awesome deals. If you guys are new to the channel, consider subscribing for more PC builds like these. And if you guys are excited for the Intel build, make sure to smack that like button. Thank you so much for watching. As always, everything mentioned in the video will be linked below. I love your faces, and I will see you in the next one.